Welcome to another DCS video, and today we're going to be looking at how we can use the mission editor to make more realistic close air support missions. By default, when units get in range, they start firing and continue firing until the opponent is dead or they run out of ammunition. The upshot of this is that ground combat tends to be over far too quickly, which means that close air tends to arrive before the fighting starts, or too late. So this tutorial is going to show a few methods to make those fights last longer and more interesting, and allow close air to actually affect a battle. In addition, I'm going to throw in a few extra ideas which will make it visually more entertaining and dramatic from the pilot's point of view. So let's jump into the editor and take a look at how we can achieve this. Okay, we're in the editor and I've created our first group, which is a squad of 10 ISIS insurgents. What I want to achieve is a period in which the group fires, a brief period where they advance, and then a longer period where they do pretty much nothing, before having another burst of fire, and so on. I also want the insurgents to flee if they're losing too many men. To do this, I've started giving the group a number of triggered actions, which are to hold fire, allow weapon free, and go to waypoint. I've also created a repetitive trigger to help control the group. A repetitive trigger will run every second of the game, and we're going to attach a condition saying random 20. This means that every second there is a 20% chance of something happening. It doesn't have to be 20, but it just suits what I'm trying to achieve. And the action is to increase flag 1 by a value of 1. So you can see this is a primitive randomized counting mechanism. This next trigger is a switch condition, and that condition is that flag 1 equals 5. So you can see that the previous trigger happens 5 times, this next action will occur. And that action is to force the units to hold fire and turn on flag 2. This will mean that the units will move forward to the next waypoint without firing. This next trigger waits 10 seconds from the previous trigger before turning the AI off. This means after a short 10-second dash, the insurgents will stop their attack. I could also randomize this, but there isn't much need. Next is a trigger which happens 60 seconds after flag 2, which is obviously 60 seconds after they stop firing and 50 seconds after they stop moving. So this is the primary way we extend the fight. As for 60 seconds, there is no firing by this group, and again, you can set these times as you wish. After that 60 seconds, I reactivate the AI and set them starting firing again with the weapon-free triggered action. I also turn flag 2 off, so the time since flag function can be reused, and it also sets flag 1 back to a value of 1, so that initial count starts over. Now you're probably thinking this isn't very realistic, and at first look it's not. But in a firefight, ground troops tend to have short bursts of fire and then periods of inactivity, and this is trying to simulate that. But the key to making it appear more realistic is to create several groups, each with similar triggers applied. Here I've created 3 groups, which is really the minimum that you would want. As you can see, the second group is created in exactly the same way, but instead of using flags 1 and 2, I'm using flags 3 and 4, and I've also set the timing slightly differently. This now gives us 3 groups. Each will have separate times when they're firing, moving, and pausing. To increase the length of the battle even further, I've created 3 separate waves of attacking infantry, so that's 9 in total, and I've also created 6 groups of defenders. We could create another set of triggers for these, but instead what I've done is simply add the second and third waves and the defenders to the same group of triggers. I've also dispersed each defending group so that you won't have everyone in one area firing at the same time. Finally, for the core function, I'm going to set them to retreat if they take too many losses. In order to do that, I'm going to set a hull flag at the destination and then add an extra waypoint which they'll retreat to. I have then set up a trigger such that if any 2 of the 3 groups get down to 33% strength, then not only that group but the entire wave will retreat by going to the end waypoints. I've also added a flag to capture that event. I've created one of these for each wave, and here, if all 3 waves are defeated, then I've set that as mission success. Now let's look at some additional ideas which you might want to add to close air missions. Mortars are a great addition, but they are very deadly and could decimate friendly forces. So in order to not affect the battle too soon, I've given these mortars multiple fire missions. The first few deliberately not hitting the base, but their fire can be seen quite easily from the air, but only if looking in roughly the right direction. There's only a few seconds between each mortar being fired in a given fire mission, but there is around 2 minutes between fire missions. So I've set up 5 separate fire missions. 4 will fire only 5 rounds, and the last one will fire 20 rounds accurately on target. This will give around 8 minutes to locate and destroy them. However, bearing in mind that each mortar only has 20 rounds, so you might need to have a group with multiple mortars or a rearming unit. You might have seen in the intro that there is a truck-borne suicide attack which takes out the base. To do this, I created a trigger zone where the trucks will explode. And here is the trigger which controls that. I also created a zone where the friendly forces open fire, temporarily overriding the initial setup. This is the trigger which controls that. So when the trucks enter the zone, I've set all the defenders to open fire, and we could even set some of them to specifically target the trucks. I also wanted the trucks to explode if shot. I could have used a single truck, but you cannot use the explode unit function on a unit which is already dead. And I also wanted the defenders to have to destroy more than one vehicle. Therefore, I created this trigger which will destroy all remaining vehicles if any 2 are destroyed. That's all I'm going to cover for now, but you might also want to think about light support vehicles and maybe some air defences. But I'd generally limit air defences to the odd manpad or AAA. Though these Cord and Dushkas are ideal as they provide heavy support and air cover for insurgents. As ever, I hope you found this useful, and if so, please do hit like and subscribe. But for now, I'm going to take off from Mr. Goodnight's awesome forward operating base near Kasab and see if I can provide some air support in time.
Uzi 1, passing waypoint 2 at 450.
Pull up, pull up. Pull up, pull up. Altitude, altitude.